Hey, you're Megan, right? That's how it all started. Me, a librarian with a love for quiet evenings and books, and him, Alex, an economist with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue. We were at this billiards club downtown, a place more accustomed to clinking glasses and raucous laughter than fairy tale meetings. But there we were. Alex was leaning against the pool table, chalk in hand, looking every bit the confident man he was. His friends were egging him on, making a ruckus every time he pocketed a ball. I was there with my own crew, having a laugh, trying to unwind after a long week shelving books and answering never-ending queries about the latest bestseller. My friend, Jenna, nudged me, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Bet you can't beat that guy," she said, pointing at Alex. I rolled my eyes. "Oh, please, I'm here to relax, not show off my surprisingly decent pool skills." But Jenna wouldn't have it. "Come on, Megan. Don't be a chicken. Plus, he's cute." I sighed, downed my drink, and sauntered over. "Hey, you up for a challenge?" I asked, trying not to sound too eager. Alex looked me up and down, a smirk playing on his lips. "Sure, but fair warning, I don't go easy on anyone." I chuckled, "Neither do I." The game was on. It was a close call, but guess what? I won. His friends hooted and hollered, while Alex just stared in disbelief. "Damn, you're good," he admitted, extending his hand. "I'm Alex." I shook his hand, feeling the firm grip. "Megan. And thanks, I know." We grabbed drinks, and the conversation flowed as easily as the beer. He told me about his job, how he crunches numbers and deals with corporate bigwigs. I told him about the library, the silence, and my secret love for old mystery novels. "So, a librarian, huh? That's different," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, well, I like it. Books are simpler than people," I replied, taking a sip of my drink. Alex laughed. "I can imagine. But you seem to handle people pretty well too." The evening rolled on, and before I knew it, I was agreeing to see him again. It was crazy, unexpected, but exciting. A few weeks later, he introduced me to his parents. His dad, George, was a soft-spoken man with a warm smile. His mom, Linda, was all charm and grace, or so it seemed. "Nice to finally meet you, Megan. Alex hasn't stopped talking about the girl who beat him at pool," Linda said, her voice dripping with something I couldn't quite place. I smiled, trying to keep it polite. "Well, it was just a lucky shot." "Oh, I doubt that," Linda said, her eyes sharp. "Alex isn't easily beaten." The evening passed with more small talk, a few laughs, and a sense that maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something good. If only I knew then what was lurking beneath those polite smiles and casual conversations. After a few blissful months, Alex and I found ourselves seated at his parents' dining table for a family dinner. It was supposed to be a regular evening, good food, a bit of wine, and casual conversation. But, oh, how wrong I was. Linda, always the hostess, had laid out an impressive spread. Roast chicken, veggies, and all the trimmings. George, as usual, was quiet but had a welcoming smile. The evening started off well enough, with light banter and updates about our lives. Then, as we were digging into dessert, Linda turned to Alex, her tone casual yet loaded. "So, Alex, now that you're married, how much will you be sending us each month?" I nearly choked on my pie. Alex put down his fork, his face a mixture of surprise and discomfort. "Mom, what do you mean? Megan and I have our expenses, and we haven't really discussed." Linda cut him off, her voice sharp. "Well, you've been helping out with our bills, haven't you? It's only right you continue. After all, family supports each other." I glanced at Alex, unsure of how to react. This was new to me. Alex never mentioned any financial help to his parents. George tried to intervene, his voice gentle. "Linda, let's not discuss this at the dinner table." But Linda was relentless. "No, George, this is important. We need to know. We have our expenses, and Alex has always helped." Alex cleared his throat, trying to keep the peace. Mom, things have changed. Megan and I have our own family to think about now. I can't promise anything regular. Linda's face turned red, her eyes blazing. Changed? So, what? We're not family anymore. Is that it? You get a wife, and suddenly your parents don't matter. I was stunned. This wasn't the Linda I met a few months back. This was someone else, someone consumed by greed and anger. Mom, that's not fair. You know I care about you and Dad, but I have responsibilities, Alex said, his voice firm yet calm. Linda slammed her hand on the table. Responsibilities? To her? She pointed at me, her words like daggers. What has she done for you? We raised you, and this is how you repay us? By abandoning us for some librarian. I felt a knot in my stomach. This wasn't just about money, it was personal. I tried to speak up. Linda, I don't think. Stay out of this, she snapped. This is between me and my son. You're just the parasite who's taking him away from his family. The air in the room was thick with tension. George reached for Linda's hand, trying to calm her. Linda, please, let's not say things we'll regret. But Linda was beyond reason. Regret? The only regret here is that my son married someone who's now taking him away from his duties as a son. Alex stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. Mom, that's enough. You're being unreasonable and insulting. I won't let you talk to Megan like that. The rest of the evening was a blur. We left soon after, the sound of Linda's angry rants echoing in our ears. The weeks following that disastrous dinner were tough. Linda's words hung over our heads like a dark cloud. One Saturday morning, as we sipped our coffee, Alex broke the silence. Megan, I'm sorry about all this. I never expected my mom to go off the rails like that. I put down my cup, meeting his gaze. Alex, it's not your fault, but we can't pretend everything's fine. Your mom, she's got some serious issues with us. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I know. I've been thinking, maybe we should lay low for a while. Avoid any family gatherings. I nodded, though a part of me felt uneasy. Avoiding the problem wouldn't make it disappear. Things took a turn for the worse when Linda started dropping by unannounced. It was like she was on a mission to find faults. One afternoon, she barged in as I was rearranging the living room. What's all this? She snapped, eyeing the new curtains and cushions. I forced a smile. Just sprucing up the place a bit. Linda snorted. With what money? Alex's. I clenched my jaw. Actually, I bought these. With my own money. She scoffed, looking around with a critical eye. Must be nice, spending money on frivolous things while your husband's parents struggle. Before I could respond, Alex walked in. Mom, what are you doing here? Linda turned to him, her voice laced with accusation. Just seeing how my son's hard-earned money is being wasted. Alex's face hardened. Mom, this has to stop. Megan's not wasting anything. She's entitled to buy whatever she wants with her money. The argument escalated, with Linda hurling insults and Alex trying to defend me. It was exhausting, watching the two most important people in my life at each other's throats. After Linda stormed out, Alex slumped onto the sofa, his face in his hands. I don't know what to do, Megan. She's my mom, but I can't let her treat you like this. I sat beside him, my heart heavy. We'll figure it out, Alex. But we can't let her walk all over us. Maybe it's time we set some boundaries. He looked up, his eyes searching mine. You're right. I'll talk to her. Lay down some ground rules. But things didn't get better. Linda's visits became more frequent and more invasive. She'd criticize everything from the way I dressed to how we decorated our home. It was like she was looking for any excuse to put me down. Living with Linda's constant scrutiny was like constantly walking on eggshells. You never knew when she would strike next, and her next target was something as mundane as a new washing machine. It was a regular Saturday afternoon. Alex and I were in the living room, enjoying a rare moment of peace, when Linda burst in, her face twisted in suspicion. "I see you've got a new washing machine," she accused, her eyes darting around the room. "Tell me, was it Alex's money that paid for it?" I sighed, feeling the familiar knot of frustration in my stomach. "Linda, it's just a washing machine. And for your information, I paid for it myself." She didn't seem convinced. "With what money? I find it hard to believe a librarian can afford such luxuries." Alex, who had been quiet until now, stood up. "Mom, Megan has her own income. She can buy whatever she needs." But Linda was relentless. "I want proof. Show me a bank statement or something. I won't have you squandering my son's hard-earned money." I couldn't believe she was serious. But to put an end to her ridiculous accusations, I went and fetched my bank statement. I handed it to her, my hands shaking slightly with anger. "Here, see for yourself. The washing machine was paid for with my money. My savings." Linda scrutinized the statement, her brows furrowed. After a moment, she looked up, her face still a picture of disbelief. "Well, I suppose this looks in order, but keep in mind, I'm watching. My son's well-being is my priority." Alex stepped in, his voice firm. "Mom, this is unacceptable. You can't just barge in here and demand to see our personal finances. It's disrespectful." Linda huffed, her stance unyielding. "Disrespectful? I'm looking out for my son. If that's disrespectful, then so be it." The tension in the air was thick. Alex's face hardened. "Mom, if you can't trust and respect us, then maybe you should reconsider your visits." Linda looked like she had been slapped. "Reconsider my visits? To my own son's house?" Alex nodded. "Yes, until you can behave in a more respectful manner." She stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken words. If I thought things with Linda couldn't get worse, I was in for a rude awakening. The real showdown happened the night of Alex's company party. It was supposed to be a big deal for him, and I wanted to make it special. That evening, I dressed in a new evening gown I'd bought just for the occasion. It was elegant, a turquoise that shimmered under the light. I was admiring myself in the mirror when the doorbell rang. Alex was still in the shower, so I went to answer it. Standing there, to my dismay, was Linda, her eyes immediately zeroing in on my dress. Well, isn't that fancy? How much did this little number set Alex back?" I clenched my teeth, trying to keep my cool. "Linda, it's nice to see you. This dress was my purchase, and it didn't set Alex back anything." She walked in, uninvited, her gaze critical. "Surely you don't expect me to believe you can afford a dress like that on a librarian's salary." Before I could respond, Alex came out, looking sharp in his suit. "Mom, what are you doing here?" She turned to him, her tone accusatory. "I was just asking Megan about her dress. It looks expensive." Alex sighed, his expression tired. "Mom, not this again. Megan bought it herself. Can we please not do this tonight?" Linda's eyes narrowed. "I just find it hard to believe, is all. With the way she spends, one would think she's trying to bankrupt you." I was about to retort when suddenly, Linda's hand, holding a glass of cherry juice, accidentally slipped, splashing the juice all over my dress. I gasped, my eyes wide in shock. "Linda, what the hell?" Linda put a hand over her mouth, a fake look of concern on her face. "Oh, dear. How clumsy of me. I'm so sorry, Megan." Alex's face was a mask of anger. "Mom, that was clearly on purpose. What are you trying to do?" She shrugged, her act dropping. "I'm just showing what happens when you live beyond your means. Maybe next time, you'll think twice before buying such extravagant things." I was shaking, rage and humiliation battling inside me. "This is unbelievable, Linda. You've crossed a line." Alex stepped in between us. "That's enough, Mom. You need to leave. Now." As she stormed out, Alex turned to me, his eyes filled with concern. Megan, I'm so sorry. Let me help you clean that up. But the dress was ruined, the bright red stain mocking me from the fabric. I held back tears, the evening spoiled. The incident with the dress was the last straw. Alex and I knew we had to confront Linda, set things straight once and for all. So, we decided to invite her over, hoping to have a civil conversation. Naive, I know. Linda arrived with her usual air of superiority. We sat in the living room, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Alex cleared his throat, starting what we both knew was going to be a difficult talk. Mom, we need to discuss your behavior, he began, his voice steady but firm. Linda raised an eyebrow. My behavior? I'm not the one parading around in expensive dresses, am I? I bit my lip, trying to keep my cool. Linda, this isn't about the dress. It's about respect, boundaries. You can't just barge into our lives, make accusations, and ruin our things. She scoffed. Oh, please. You make it sound like I'm some tyrant. I'm just concerned about my son's well-being. Alex interjected. Mom, what you did to Megan's dress was unacceptable. And your constant questioning of our finances, it's invasive and disrespectful. Linda folded her arms, her expression unyielding. Invasive? Disrespectful? I'm your mother, Alex. It's my right to know where your money is going, especially when it's being wasted on frivolities. That's when she dropped the bombshell. In fact, I think it's only fair that if you buy something for Megan, you should buy something of equal value for me. After all, I am your mother. I stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious? That's ridiculous. Alex was just as stunned. Mom, that's an absurd demand. We're not going to do that. Linda's face turned red with anger. Absurd? I gave birth to you, raised you, and this is the thanks I get? You choosing this woman over your own mother. Alex stood up, his anger palpable. This isn't about choosing, Mom. It's about fairness, respect. Megan is my wife, and you can't treat her like this. Linda stood up too, her voice rising. Fine. If that's how you want it, then don't expect any help from me when you need it. Don't come crying to me when this marriage falls apart because you're too blind to see what's going on. With that, she stormed out, leaving a trail of bitterness and shock in her wake. Alex and I sat there, stunned. The ultimatum she had given us was not just outrageous, it was hurtful. Alex put his head in his hands. I can't believe she said that. I don't know what to do. I reached over, taking his hand. We'll figure this out, Alex. But we can't give in to her demands. That's not how this works. He nodded, a look of determination in his eyes. You're right. We can't let her control us, dictate our lives. It's not fair to you, to us. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more strained with Linda, the universe decided to throw us another curveball. It all started on our anniversary. Alex surprised me with a beautiful diamond ring worth $10,000. It was more than just a piece of jewelry, it was a symbol of our love, something precious and personal. A week after the anniversary, Linda decided to pay us an unexpected visit. She walked in as if nothing had happened, as if her last visit and the ultimatum hadn't left a bitter taste in all our mouths. Hello, Megan, Alex, she said, her voice dripping with a forced sweetness. I just thought I'd drop by, see how you're both doing. I exchanged a wary glance with Alex. We're fine, Linda. What brings you here? She wandered around, feigning interest in the mundane, but her eyes were scanning, always scanning. It wasn't until she noticed the ring on my finger that her facade cracked. Oh, what's this? She reached for my hand, her fingers cold against my skin. A new ring? Looks expensive. Alex, who had been silent, spoke up. It's an anniversary gift, Mom. Linda raised an eyebrow. Really? Must have cost a pretty penny. I hope you're not dipping into your savings for this. I pulled my hand away, feeling a surge of anger. It's none of your business, Linda. She shrugged, but her eyes lingered on the ring with a gleam that I didn't like. The next day, the unthinkable happened. The ring was gone. I turned the house upside down, but it was nowhere to be found. Panic and suspicion gnawed at me. There was only one person who could have taken it. I called Alex, my voice shaking. The ring is gone. I can't find it anywhere. There was a pause, and then, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" "Linda," we both said in unison. Alex decided to confront her. He called her, his voice a mix of anger and disbelief. "Mom, did you take Megan's ring?" Her laughter on the other end was like ice. "Oh, Alex, really? Why would I take her ring? You're being ridiculous." But there was something in her tone, a hint of mockery, that made my blood boil. "We'll go to the police, Linda. This is theft." Her laughter continued, unfazed. "Go ahead. You have no proof. It's your word against mine." We were at a loss. The ring was gone, and with it, a piece of our happiness. But then, a few days later, George called. "Alex, your mom's not well. She's hurt her hand. She won't go to the hospital, but I think she should." We rushed over, and there she was, her hand bandaged, tears in her eyes. But it wasn't just pain, there was fear there too. "What happened, Linda?" Alex asked, his voice softening despite everything. She mumbled something about a fall, but when she moved her hand, I saw it. The diamond ring was on her finger, stuck, her finger swollen around it. We had to take her to the hospital. The ring had to be removed under local anesthesia. It was a surreal experience, watching the doctors carefully extract the symbol of our love from the finger of the woman who had caused us so much pain. The whole ring fiasco had pushed us to our limits. Linda, even after the hospital incident, didn't seem to get the gravity of her actions. It was like she was living in her own world, where she could do no wrong. Alex and I were fed up. It was time for a final showdown. We called her over, making it clear this wasn't a friendly visit. When she walked in, there was this arrogance about her, like she still owned the place. "Sit down, Mom. We need to talk," Alex said, his voice hard. She rolled her eyes, taking a seat. "What now? More accusations?" I couldn't believe her nerve. "Accusations? Linda, you stole from us. And you act like it's nothing?" She shrugged, a smirk on her face. "Oh, come on. It was just a ring. No need to make such a big deal out of it." Alex slammed his hand on the table, his patience running thin. "Just a ring? You broke our trust, Mom. You've been nothing but trouble since Megan and I got married." Linda scoffed. "Trouble? I'm the victim here. You've changed, Alex. This woman has changed you." That did it. I was seething. "This woman has a name, Linda. And I'm sick of your crap. We've been nothing but patient with you, but you just keep pushing and pushing." Alex nodded, his expression stern. "We're at the end of our rope, Mom. We're not going to sit back and let you walk all over us. That ring stunt? We could go to the police with that." Linda's face fell a bit at that. "You wouldn't dare." "Try us," I shot back. "You need to change your attitude, Linda, or else we're done. No more visits, no more calls. Nothing." She looked at us, finally realizing we meant business. "You're bluffing." Alex stood up, his decision clear. "No, we're not. This is your last chance, Mom. Shape up, or we're cutting you out of our lives." Linda stood too, her face a mix of anger and disbelief. "Fine. If that's how you want it, then have it your way. But don't come crawling back to me." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Alex and I just sat there, the silence heavy. In the weeks that followed, we stuck to our word. No calls, no visits. It was tough, especially on Alex, but it was necessary. We needed peace, a break from the constant drama and disrespect. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. We had to protect our marriage, our sanity. And sometimes, that meant making tough choices, even if it hurt.
I was folding laundry in the quiet of our suburban home when the phone rang. It was an ordinary Thursday, but that phone call was about to shatter the mundanity of my life. I wiped my hands on my apron as I answered. "Hey, Mom, it's Lucas," came the voice of my son, who had ventured out into the world, leaving the nest for college 2 years ago. "Lucas, darling, is everything okay?" I asked, a smile naturally forming on my lips at the sound of his voice. There was a pause, a hesitation I wasn't used to with Lucas. "Mom, I need to ask you something. Where's Dad these days?" I frowned slightly, puzzled. "Your father?" "He's been really busy with work. He's staying at the company's apartment for a while." "Why do you ask?" Another pause, longer this time. Lucas's voice, when it came, was laden with uncertainty. "Mom, I think Dad's company doesn't have any company apartments." My heart skipped a beat. "How do you know that?" "Well, I was at this job fair, and I overheard some people talking about Dad's company. They said there aren't any company apartments. Mom, is it possible that Dad is lying to us?" The room suddenly felt colder, the walls closing in. I struggled to maintain my composure. "Lucas, are you sure? Maybe you misunderstood." "No, Mom, I'm sure, and I think Dad is seeing someone else." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Lucas, that's a serious accusation. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" "I wish I were, Mom. I saw Dad with this woman younger, maybe in her 20s. They seemed close. Too close." My hands trembled, the phone almost slipping from my grasp. The man I had spent 20 years of my life with? Could he really betray us like this? "Mom, are you there?" Lucas's voice was laced with concern. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "Yes, I'm here. Lucas, thank you for telling me. I need some time to think about this. We'll figure this out, Mom. I'm here for you," he said firmly. After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, the unfinished laundry forgotten. My mind raced with questions and fears. Had I been so blind? Was the love and trust I invested in my marriage a mere facade? The thought of Mark with another woman, especially someone Lucas's age, churned my stomach. I had to find out the truth. But how? The idea of confronting Mark terrified me. Yet the thought of living in ignorance was even worse. I needed answers, and I was determined to get them, no matter how painful they might be. As the sun set outside, casting long shadows across the room, I realized that my once peaceful life was now on the brink of a storm, and I had to brace myself for whatever was coming. Saturday morning dawned with a heaviness that seemed to mirror my mood. Mark was due to visit this weekend, but the thought no longer brought me joy. The words of my son, Lucas, echoed in my mind, tainting every memory I had of Mark. As I prepared breakfast, the doorbell rang. It was my in-laws, George and Helen, arriving for their weekly visit. Despite the turmoil within, I greeted them with a forced smile. "Emma, dear, you look a bit off. Is everything all right?" Helen asked, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "Just a headache," I lied, unwilling to burden them with my suspicions. We sat around the breakfast table, chatting about mundane things. But my heart wasn't in it. My gaze kept drifting to Mark's empty chair, a stark reminder of the growing distance between us. When the topic turned to Mark, Helen's tone was warm. "He's been working so hard lately. You must be proud of him, getting that big project at the office." I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes, very proud." George, always the jovial one, chimed in. "Remember how he used to say he'd be a big shot one day? Looks like he was right." Their pride in their son was palpable, and it twisted the knife in my heart further. How could I shatter this image they had of Mark? The loving son, the dedicated husband. But beneath that facade lay a different truth, one that Lucas had unwittingly uncovered. As they continued to praise Mark, a part of me wanted to scream, to tell them that their perfect son was a liar, a cheat. But I couldn't, not without proof. The rest of their visit passed in a blur. I was there, but not really. My mind was elsewhere, caught in a storm of betrayal and hurt. After they left, I found myself wandering through the house, lost in thought. Our home, once a haven of love and security, now felt like a house of cards, ready to collapse at any moment. I stumbled upon a photo album, pages filled with pictures of happier times. Mark and I laughing, holding each other. Was it all just a lie? Had I been living a dream while he lived a double life? That evening, as I lay in bed, sleep eluded me. I realized that I couldn't let this go. I needed to confront Mark, to hear the truth from his lips. Whatever that truth might be, I was ready to face it. I had to be. For my own sanity. And deep down, a part of me yearned for revenge. If Mark had shattered our vows, then he didn't deserve my silence. He didn't deserve the facade of a happy family that I had helped build. As the night deepened, so did my resolve. I would confront Mark, and if my fears were confirmed, he would pay for his betrayal. In what way, I wasn't sure yet, but he would pay. Monday arrived with a sense of foreboding. I had spent the weekend in turmoil, oscillating between denial and a desire for the truth. Today I decided I would confront Mark. As the clock ticked closer to the time Mark was due to arrive, my anxiety grew. My hands trembled as I prepared coffee, each spoonful of sugar sounding unnervingly loud in the silent kitchen. The doorbell rang, jolting me from my thoughts. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. Mark stood there, his smile faltering slightly as he noticed my somber expression. "Emma, what's wrong?" he asked, stepping inside. I led him to the living room, my heart pounding. "We need to talk, Mark." He looked concerned now, his eyes searching mine. "Of course, anything." I took a deep breath, the words I had rehearsed all weekend spilling out. "Lucas called. He said something disturbing about you being unfaithful." Mark's reaction was immediate, his face flushed, his eyes darting away. "Lucas said what? That's ridiculous, Emma." But his denial lacked conviction, his voice betraying him. I pressed on, the hurt and anger giving me strength. "He saw you, Mark, with a younger woman. He's convinced you're having an affair." Mark's posture stiffened, his expression hardening. "Lucas is mistaken. I can't believe you'd think I'd do something like that." But the more he denied, the clearer the truth became. His body language, the evasion in his eyes, it all pointed to one painful reality. Mark was lying. "Are you really going to stand there and lie to me, Mark?" My voice trembled with emotion. "After all these years, you owe me the truth." For a moment he looked like he might confess. But then his face closed off, his voice cold. "I have nothing to confess, Emma. If you choose to believe Lucas over me, then that's your problem." His words felt like a slap in the face. The man I had loved, trusted, and supported was now a stranger, hiding behind a veil of lies and deceit. The conversation spiraled into an argument, accusations and denials flying. But no confession came. Mark maintained his innocence, even as his lies crumbled around him. Finally, exhausted and emotionally drained, I ended the confrontation. "I can't do this anymore, Mark. I don't know who you are." Mark left, his departure leaving a cold void in the house. I sat there alone, the weight of his betrayal crushing me. But amidst the pain, a fire was kindling within me. A fire fueled by betrayal and the desire for revenge. Mark had chosen to deceive and hurt me. Now, it was my turn to make him pay for his lies. I didn't know how yet, but I was determined. Mark would not get away with this. He would feel the consequences of his actions, just as I was feeling the pain of his betrayal. The days following my confrontation with Mark were a blur of emotions. Betrayal, anger, and disbelief swirled within me, a constant storm. But amidst the chaos, a new resolve was forming. I wouldn't be a victim. I would fight back. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table going through our finances, the reality of my situation became starkly clear. Mark had always controlled the money, and now I was left with barely enough to cover the bills. The thought of asking him for more was intolerable. Determined, I decided to take control of my life. I started looking for a job, something I hadn't done since before Lucas was born. I scoured the classifieds, sent out resumes, and finally I got a call for an interview at a local retail store. The interview day arrived, and as I sat across from the store manager, Mr. Thompson, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. His questions were straightforward, and I answered them as best as I could, emphasizing my eagerness to learn and adapt. "You've been out of the workforce for a while," Mr. Thompson noted, his tone neutral. "Yes," I admitted, "but I'm ready to start again. I'm hardworking and quick to learn." Mr. Thompson nodded, his expression softening. "All right, Mrs. Thompson, we're willing to give you a chance." Gratitude flooded through me. This was more than a job. It was a step towards my independence. As I started working, I found a sense of empowerment that I hadn't felt in years. Each day at the store was challenging, but it was also liberating. I was making my own money, no longer solely dependent on Mark. However, my newfound independence seemed to irk Mark. He started calling me, his tone oscillating between condescension and anger. "Why do you need to work?" he sneered during one call. "I provide for you, don't I? Or are you trying to make a point?" His words stung, but they also fueled my resolve. "I'm working because I want to be independent, Mark. I'm not your puppet anymore." There was a pause, and then he laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Well, if you're so independent, maybe I should stop supporting you altogether. See how you like that." The threat was clear, but I refused to be intimidated. "Do what you must, Mark. I will survive, with or without your support." After that call, Mark cut the financial support he had been giving me. It was a blow, but not an unexpected one. I tightened my belt, budgeted rigorously, and focused on my job. As the days passed, my anger towards Mark turned into something else, a burning desire for revenge. He thought he could control me, break me, but he was wrong. I was stronger than he knew. I started to plan, to think of ways to expose him for what he was. A cheater, a liar, a manipulator. I wanted him to feel a fraction of the pain he had caused me, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. The opportunity for my revenge presented itself unexpectedly. Mark's parents, George and Helen, invited us for a family dinner, a tradition we had maintained for years. This time, however, the dinner was anything but ordinary for me. It was the stage where Mark's facade would crumble. I arrived early to help with preparations, my heart heavy yet determined. Helen noticed my subdued mood, but attributed it to stress. Little did she know the turmoil that churned within me. As we were setting the table, the doorbell rang. It was Mark, his usual confident self, unaware of the storm that was about to hit him. Following him was Lucas, my son, the bearer of the truth. Dinner commenced with light conversation, but the air was heavy with unspoken words. I glanced at Lucas, giving him a subtle nod. It was time. Lucas cleared his throat, commanding the attention of the table. "There's something I need to say, something about Dad." Mark laughed it off. "What is it, son? Another one of your pranks?" But Lucas's expression was grave. "No, Dad, this is serious. I saw you with another woman. Not just once, multiple times." The room went silent. Mark's face turned ashen, his confident demeanor faltering. "What are you talking about, Lucas?" "That's nonsense," Mark stammered, but his voice lacked conviction. Lucas's gaze was unwavering. "I saw you, Dad. You were with her at a hotel. She's young, about my age. You can't deny it." Helen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. George's face hardened, his eyes narrowing at Mark. "Is this true, Mark? Are you cheating on Emma?" Helen's voice was a whisper, laced with disbelief and pain. Mark's facade finally broke. He looked from face to face, realizing the gravity of the situation. "It's not what you think. She's just a colleague." But his weak defense fell on deaf ears. The damage was done. George stood up, his voice thundering. "You bring shame to this family. How could you do this to Emma, to your own son?" Mark tried to argue, to justify his actions, but his words were empty, hollow. The truth was laid bare for all to see. I watched, a mix of satisfaction and sorrow in my heart. Mark had been exposed. His betrayal, his lies, all out in the open. But the pain it caused his parents, the disappointment in Lucas's eyes, was a bitter pill to swallow. The dinner ended abruptly, the family shattered by the revelation. Mark left, his head hung low, his image as the perfect son, the perfect husband, destroyed. As I drove home that night, a part of me felt vindicated, but another part grieved for the loss of the family I once knew. Yet amidst the chaos, I knew one thing for certain. Mark would pay for his betrayal. This was just the beginning of his downfall. The fallout from the dinner was immediate and far-reaching. Mark's betrayal had not only fractured our family, but also stained his reputation. His parents, once his staunchest supporters, were now his fiercest critics. In the following weeks, I watched as Mark's life began to unravel. His affair, once hidden in the shadows, was now public knowledge, and the consequences were devastating. His work suffered, friends distanced themselves, and even our son, Lucas, struggled to come to terms with his father's actions. But amidst the chaos, a plan formed in my mind, a plan for retribution. Mark had taken so much from me, it was time he understood the pain he had inflicted. I began by reaching out to a lawyer, a friend from before I married Mark. I explained my situation, the years of emotional neglect, and Mark's recent infidelity. She was sympathetic and immediately offered to help. "We'll make sure you get what you deserve, Emma. It's time for Mark to face the consequences of his actions, she said with determination. Armed with legal support, I confronted Mark about a divorce. He was taken aback, his arrogance faltering under the weight of his crumbling world. Emma, please, let's talk about this. I know I made a mistake, but I can change, he pleaded, a shadow of his former self. But I was resolute. It's too late for that, Mark. You've made your choices, and now you must live with them. The divorce proceedings were messy, as Mark tried to cling to his rapidly diminishing assets. But my lawyer was relentless, and in the end, I was awarded a significant portion of our shared assets, including the house. As Mark's world crumbled, I began to rebuild mine. The divorce had granted me a substantial settlement, which I used to secure my financial independence. I continued working, finding solace and strength in my newfound autonomy. The final blow to Mark came unexpectedly. His affair with the younger woman, now his only solace, ended abruptly. She left him, unable to cope with the public scrutiny and the reality of being with a man whose life was in ruins. Mark was left alone, a shadow of the man he once was. His career, his reputation, his personal life, all had fallen apart because of his choices. As for me, I found peace in my independence. I reconnected with old friends, explored new hobbies, and even began dating again, something I hadn't thought possible. The path to healing was long and fraught with challenges, but I emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Mark's betrayal had broken me, but in the end, it had also freed me. I had faced my deepest fears and come out victorious. And though I took no pleasure in Mark's downfall, there was a sense of justice in seeing him face the consequences of his actions. He had chosen his path, and now he had to walk it alone. As I looked to the future, I knew that new horizons awaited me, horizons filled with hope, strength, and the promise of a life lived on my terms.